Welcome to another story, folks. So, today's story is about a dead lady. We'll call dead lady Donna. Okay? Donna has a very interesting story. When she came into our care, Donna apparently had a son. I almost forgot to write Donna's name. Switching colors. And then son. Let's call son Sam. All right? Sam might be a common name just because it starts with the S. Sam here, he's the smart one. He handled all her finances, took care of her, and he loved her very much. Apparently, Sam is a very honest man. He said, my mother Donna is still legally married. Oh, she is? Who is she married to? Is it your father? No, it's his stepfather. So stepfather, because father starts with an F, we'll call Father Frank. Frank is not Sam's father. He is Sam's stepfather, but he left Donna 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Donna and Frank have not been together, but Donna and Frank never bothered to divorce. Sam has been taking care of Donna for the last 20 years, has a will from Donna appointing Sam as executor of estate. But executors of estate are only in charge of a person's money after they die. It does not appoint them as the legal authority where I'm from to make decisions for somebody's cremation or death. So, Sam and Frank, they don't talk to each other. They don't like each other. Sam and Frank are fighting over a house and Donna's other assets. But I told Sam, I said, I cannot move forward with cremation for Donna unless I have written authority from Frank, because he is the primary next of kin. Primary next of kin in our state is a legal stance that starts with, and always starts with, actually, a will, then a spouse. And if there's no spouse, then adult children. And then so on, parents, siblings. But since there is a spouse, I told Sam, we are going to have Frank's help. And I explained to Sam that he can either sign over a delegation of authority that will give Sam permission to make these decisions, or Sam can take it to court. Sam decides he's going to take the high road and call Frank and ask if he could sit down with Frank. But first, he doesn't know how to feel. So, as the funeral arranger, this is me. He asked me to call Frank on his phone and at least advise him of the process that I talked to Sam about. I know the story is going kind of slow, but I'm getting somewhere. Stay with me. I called Frank, and after about 3 sentences, Frank has a complete and utter breakdown. He is crying. He has a bad heart condition. He is ridden with guilt over leaving Donna 20 years ago. And he doesn't know what to do. He's lost. He's hurt. And apparently, he just frankly doesn't know what to do. So I advised Frank that Sam is willing to help and Sam has all these plans, but Sam is a little apprehensive because there is a rift about the house and the assets. Frank says he does not care about the house. He does not care about the assets. He just wants her put to rest. That's good news. So I called Sam back and I explained to Sam what Frank said. And Sam then called Frank. They both sat down and had a friendly cup of coffee. That's coffee, in case any of you are wondering. Not a cup of shit. So, friendly cup of coffee. Not only does Frank sign the house over to Sam and the assets to Sam, but also signs over a delegation of authority to Sam so that he can make all the arrangements for Donna. 2 weeks later, Sam walks into my office and picks up his ashes for his mother and death certificates. And he gives me a wonderful gift, a little plaque that he had made for me with appreciation for making that initial phone call to Frank. Apparently, Frank ended up in the hospital a few days after that first phone call. He is okay, but just a little ridden with grief and guilt. But after 20 years of carrying whatever animosity these two had, the resolution of this was that Frank was able to get half of the ashes in a keepsake of his wife. And whatever the reason that he left her for 20 years ago, apparently doesn't matter now. And the other half is with Sam and her house and her assets. Sam is going to be sure to sell it and split half of it with Frank. I always love a happy ending. And thank you for bearing with me as slowly as I made it through. Taking the caps and off and on these pens are a little bit difficult sometimes. They're good pens. Not sure how children are able to color with these. But anyways, thank you for listening to my story, and I hope, if anything, we take away from this. Taking the high road sometimes can mend a relationship. You never know. Not all stories are perfect, but coffee helps. All right, guys. Make the most of your life, and be sure to live the life that you have to the fullest. Make sure you don't have regrets like Frank. Maybe that's why he had such a bad heart. If he hadn't broken his own heart by leaving his wife, he might have been much better off, right? Okay, live your life to the fullest, everyone.